And we will call to an open session. Jackie, roll call, please.
Here. Yeah. Gatwood. Here. Steve Byers.
Here.
Jose Jacquez.
Here.
Christopher Boyce.
Here.
Mark Charvat.
Here.
Nancy Bynum. Here. Maria Bella Rodriguez.
All right, now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we'll now move into public comment. We've got only one speaker, correct, Jackie?
Correct.
All right, Jenna Zimmerman.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone I've worked with being past student board member, and I just wanted to give a formal thank you to everyone. It gave me an awesome experience, and I was able to learn so much about not only how our school works, but just how life works in general. And I've also been able to interact with so many amazing staff members as well as fellow students. So I just want to say a thank you to Dr. Garcia Sanchez as well as Ari, who's not here. But I wish Maria some luck for the future. But thank you everyone who has helped me.
Thank you. All right, moving on to board correspondence. Does anyone have any correspondence for the board? Yes, Mark.
A few little quick points. I promise I won't take up as much time as last week. I would like to have a public conversation on how the district handles the Freedom of Information Act request. One of the items on the agenda is the FOIA compliance tracker that's published on the agenda. And I was just looking through the items. I'm very much a advocate of transparency and following FOIA to the letter of the law. And a couple items caught my interest in as far as how we handle the Freedom of Information Act requests from the public. Item 60, a individual, a citizen requested the contract, basically the contract goals that were approved by this board back in September. And he said there was no discussion on the item, and basically this contract was supposed to be attached to the agenda. And this individual asked that the performance and improvement goals approved at the meeting of September 3rd for the superintendent. Now, the FOIA was requested on April 21st of this year. The 428 FOIA officer was given an extension to the 28th of April. And then the FOIA was finally delivered to the requester on the 5th of May. Now, why it took so long to get a single-page document to a member of the public that was supposed to be published on the agenda for the public to see, that it took 2.5 weeks to get to him when it should have been made public already. This was a one-page document. So at some point in time, I would like this board to perhaps address this issue and maybe have a subject discussion on FOIA, why it would take 6 hours to deliver a one-page document that was supposed to be public. I've done FOIAs many times in the past, and it's very frustrating when you don't give people information. I'd like to have a full conversation with this. Maybe I could meet with our FOIA officer. Maybe the board could have a discussion on this. The public has a right to see this information, and it showed 6 hours of staff time for a single-page document. Now, the document eventually made it to the agenda packet 2 weeks after the FOIA request. And keep in mind, this was approved back in September, so it was populated 2 weeks after the FOIA. So I want to bring up an item that I think is quite interesting that our nearby district in Sycamore does. They have an item on their agenda every week called agenda building. They refer to it as future agenda items, where board members can discuss for future discussion things they'd like to bring forth to the board. Because I would kind of like board correspondence to be, where we talk about things that we do, things we've observed in the district rather than policies. So they refer to it as subject area, future agenda items. Now, I'm not sure if that would require some sort of policy change on the part of the board, but they put it near the end of the agenda so board members can suggest items to be brought about. And that's it for that. Thank you.
Well, I don't think since the last board meeting, yeah, no. Graduation occurred, and I'm sure, especially with some of our new board members that got to be a part of that, I hope that you guys got to feel how truly powerful and pivotal of a day that really is, especially with this was our largest graduating class in history. So I guess just first, kudos to our administrative team and all of our teachers and staff at the high school who just put all of that together. So just truly just phenomenal, and I am just really inspired by all of our students and the success that we're starting to have. So that's just kind of my quick comment.
Thank you.
I went to graduation and I went to Huntley's 8th grade recognition, and both were awesome. So great to see the kids being proud of their work, and glad we get to go.
All right. And any other board correspondence? Hearing none, we'll move on to student board correspondence. Maria did not give me anything. You know, it's summer. I'm just going to let them have fun and enjoy their summer. That is A-okay. So moving on to item D, just want to give a quick shout out to our mirror in the business department. For another year, we have been awarded the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting, so truly just a great job. And then to the amazing consent agenda. So, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, items 5B through 5E, which is B, approval of board minutes, C, approval of personnel action items, D, approval of purchase order requisitions, and E, employment contract for the assistant principal for Founders Elementary. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Can we remove any items?
So I guess the first thing that I'll throw out, instead of removing items for separate votes, unless you're planning to vote no, just have discussion on it instead of removing it. So is there something, are you planning to vote no on a specific item, or are you just?
No, I want to have a separate discussion on something.
Yeah, so then we can just open that up for discussion on that specific thing. We don't have to remove it from the consent agenda to discuss it. So
Okay.
what would you like?
I would like to remove the employment contract for the assistant principal.
All right, so E will become its own item. Besides that, did you have any discussion or questions on A through D?
I think in the approval of the meeting minutes, I could have sworn, unless it was corrected, one of the votes, let's try to find it here, voted, indicate that several members were missing in a vote. I don't know if that was correct.
7A old business.
7A old business.
Yeah, the renovations, it just says not present at vote instead of yes, so it's just a typo.
Right, just need to correct that.
All right. So do we have a motion to approve items 5A through 5D with the amendment to 5B?
Well, I also want to comment on the other item, so I don't have the time to.
Yeah.
We are approving the assistant principal position. And I'm just curious, maybe we can have a discussion on this in the future. Why does District 428 grade schools in general have assistant principals when many other districts, for example, Sycamore, for their grade schools, that they don't have assistant principals? We're gonna be looking at probably budget issues going forward here, and I'm concerned. I'm not voting no on anything here, but I would like maybe going forward, maybe looking at the need for assistant principals at the grade school level. I believe the salary for this position is $88,000, and I'm not sure how much it's gonna be with salary and benefits. I would imagine it's probably over $100,000, but community members, taxpayers always tell me that the resources of our employees should be in the classroom as opposed to being in the front office. And this is just my take on things, what I hear from the community. Why do we have so many assistant principals? Sycamore manages to get by without them. So that's just my take. I'm gonna vote in favor of it for now, but maybe look at this going forward.
So I guess I'll just quickly jump in to kind of give more of an explanation. So I know Sycamore is right down the road, but to compare us to Sycamore is truly to compare apples and oranges. Sycamore is one, compared to us, a much higher income school district, And two, as far as demographics go, they're a very homogeneous school district. So the behavior problems that present in our elementary schools versus their elementary schools are just very different things. Where one of the things that we've found that has brought down, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in the room, but we've been able to bring down a lot of our behavior, suspension, and expulsion data within the elementary schools by implementing these assistant principals and restorative deans at that level. And what we've really found is if we nip it in the butt early, it doesn't become a problem when they get to middle school and high school, where those actions start to become not just, oh, I slapped someone wrong. Now we're dealing with a kid got hospitalized because they have the power and the ability to absolutely put a whooping. So we've just found it's been more effective to find those targeted buildings within the school district where we know we have higher populations of low-income students, where we have data that shows, hey, there needs to be more assistance and resources there. And we found that these administrators have helped to curb a lot of those issues. So that's just at least the why on why we've been doing that with some of these larger schools.
If I may also add to that, school leaders are imperative for the growth of this district, specifically because they are part of the support of the teachers in the classroom, whether it's for evaluation purposes, providing coaching and mentoring, providing any other restorative practices within the classroom that supports the teacher and within all of the work that they have to do. Remembering that outside of the classroom, we have obviously social workers, psychologists that are that support children directly and are bombarded with the kind of work that they do. Having two individuals outside of that realm being able to support individual teachers at a grade level, a school as a whole, aside from then supporting families as they're calling and needing. One person will never be able to do that kind of work, or you're just gonna have them doing that all day. Two people already in a school that's a little smaller, maybe like a Lincoln or, little smaller schools where they only have two sections, that's very different. But with founders with such a large school, I would even consider having even a third person there for them based on the number of students that they have. So us taking away administration doesn't keep us from taking money away from students. We're always going to put money closest to the students. Having that staff person at the end of the day helps everyone at that building, not just the teachers, not just students, not just the other administrator, but the family as a whole and the community.
How much is duplicative of the assistant principal and the principals in DeKalb schools?
So actually, we have two principals in the room right now and others that have been principals as myself. Usually, I don't know if either one of you want to jump in, but I'll start off by saying most part is that, I'm going to say based on over at Cortland, right? We have Ms. Hilliard and Ms. Frankel who take one group section and then the other group of section. So sometimes they divide things, whether it's an evaluation or coaching, working with teachers. I know that, Ms. Hilliard handles a lot of the teacher feedback on the PQS, whereas Ms. Frankel might be doing the paraprofessionals. So there isn't work that they're both working on together, unless it's professional development, staff development that they need to do, the budget, school improvement planning. Let's see, we can keep going. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Together on many things, however,
Come on up.
Great.
That with the public in here.
Great.
Thank you.
I was totally planning on this, that's awesome, thanks guys.
She's gonna be here all night telling you everything that she does, but give them the highlights, please.
Yeah, well, Cortland, like Founders, we have over 500 students, 24 classrooms, 3, and Founders I think has 5, sole classrooms. And with that comes over 100 staff members, all of whom need evaluation, coaching, mentoring. For one person to do all that, it's just, we're not duplicative. We're each working on so many different ones. I think I completed 30 teacher evaluations last year, and Melissa did almost 30. We have a lot of new staff that requires more evaluations, plus we don't want it to be
And that's more than one evaluation, though.
Yes.
It's 3 evaluations over the course of the year, 2 or 3?
2.
2.
And with that, we also don't want it to just be the formal evaluation process. We want to be going into classrooms, observing the day-to-day, and giving feedback and making those improvements and carrying over our school improvement goals all the time. So that's why we need 2 people.
And then if the principal has to step out either for a meeting that left the building unattended to previously, when we did have a shared assistant principal across 2 buildings, if we needed to make sure that, if the principal was out, then we didn't have anybody taking care of the building, and we had to find somebody else to cover the classroom, a different leader from across the district. There's a lot of reasons that we added to make sure that each one of our schools had 2 school leaders to really balance out the leadership, obviously, in the building, but education, the support, and the resources that are given to each and every one. Could we be better? Obviously, everything we can do better. If we can become more efficient, we're also going to be doing that. But to take away something that has really built a momentum and support, I think would probably take us backwards instead of forward. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
If I could throw something in, 2 things. One, when I was working with as a school resource officer, having access to an administrator, no matter when I walked into the building, was always a plus. And when I first started, the leadership meeting that happened here at the district every Wednesday, starting at 2:00, all administrators were here. So if I had to go to a building and talk to an administrator, there wasn't one available. So having the extra one definitely helps. On a personal note, I still remember the great Roberta Jess, who was my assistant principal in elementary school. And the reason why I was not in her office as a disciplinary problem, no matter what people think. I remember because the principal had administrative stuff to do, and she was available to walk around and interact with the kids, go into the classrooms and see what the kids were doing with the teachers. And that was, 40 years ago. And if 40 years ago we had assistant principals, I think it would be definitely going backwards if we got rid of them. I do have a comment on something else, so if anybody else has something on the assistant principal thing. Okay. On the consent agenda, everything looks great. I would just, Amir, Minerva, if you can help, please have these guys do better. The people putting together financial estimates, better estimates. Because it seemed.
Can we clarify that for you?
So there are different times where, I mentioned it last week and I got an acceptable, or last meeting, got an acceptable answer about why the estimate was so far off of the actual cost. It happened again, we're talking about minuscule dollars here, but still, if you're gonna put in an estimate that something's gonna cost $600 and it ends up costing the district $1,800, is that money really significant? Probably not, but the fact that we're off by a factor of 3 is. So just looking to see that, the people who are putting together these financial estimates of what it's gonna cost the district to do something are actually doing their due diligence to do it properly so that we're not being surprised. And it doesn't look like they're asking forgiveness instead of permission. Because that's the way it kind of looks to me. It's like, hey, we got permission to do this, and if we're over cost, oh, well, we already spent the money, so they're gonna be okay with it, and we'll just beg for forgiveness. And that's not really the way we wanna run things.
Okay, I can appreciate that. I think that with the differentials committee, we need to make sure that we're more careful about how and what those differentials look like. So, Deetra, I think that's your committee, correct? So we'll make sure that we take a closer look at that. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, one other quick comment, just a general comment. For the purchase order listing, I noticed we just list the fiscal year for the purchase order, 24-25. Is there any way in the future we can get specific dates these things occurred on? It's very general, so I don't know if these are from last fall, April, or May. It would be helpful to see that on here. If it's coded in here somewhere and I'm not seeing it, let me know. I can see for some of the conferences that we've reimbursed people for, but for example, there's more massages on the lineup again this time around. So when did that occur? It'd be helpful just to have the date on there as well. It's kind of like a receipt,
So, yeah, this document is straight from our financial software. So it is already parameters are the same that come directly from there. When we come to the board, these are expenses, these are purchase orders, these are requests. These are not being paid yet. The actual payment comes on the second board meeting. So these are as they come in, as these requests come in from our teachers, from our administrators, from our buildings. They are presented to the board. This is their first kind of view of it. And in the second board meeting, you actually approve the invoices or the payments of it.
Okay, thank you.
Amir, is there a way that we can get a record, a view of the purchase order and when it was assigned? Because that would probably answer the question.
So it'll be within this time period, between the last board meeting and this board meeting. So it's not that you're getting this from like January. This will be between these past 2 weeks.
So generally speaking, just so that we're clear, is that it's the way that business gets done and the way the system is set up, the business gets done, correct?
Correct.
So it's not something that we're doing or we're keeping from it doing, it's just the way that it gets entered and then gets processed through the system.
Does the system have the option to put in a date where it was submitted, like it was submitted into the system on May the 3rd or?
And another thing there is also, there's a lot of layers of approvers, right? So once the principal approves it, then it comes to the grant manager or the TNL manager, and then the business office. So there might be a few days of approval that goes through sorting. So this is the best, I think this is a
So
template. I would
let's
look
give them
for-
a for instance, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, if somebody wants to purchase a printer, in order for a printer to be purchased, there has to be approved, pre-approved, then the purchase request, the request is made, right? The purchase order is given, then the director of technology should be approving that. Then, once the director of technology approves it, then it gets approved by your office to be able to actually fund, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that, because it goes in different queues depending on the timing of it, that's why it gets to that point, correct?
Correct, but again, these are about 2 week, when we bring this forward as they are coming in for approval.
And just a helpful notification at the bottom, I had to kind of Google all the status codes from these, like AW and O and all that. I didn't see a glossary. I don't know if we can maybe include that at the end or at the beginning of the document in the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
These are just financial, is how the financial software provides it, but we can look for another report, but I think this is the one that we've been sharing.
Just in the future, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right,
Move to accept.
all right. We have a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Kristen. Jackie, roll call, please.
Nick Atwood,
Yes.
Steve Byers,
Yes.
Jose Jaquez.
Yes.
Christopher Boyes,
Yes.
Mark Sherbat,
Yes.
Vante Bynum,
Yes.
Kristen Bailey. Yes.
And now for item E, employment contract assistant principal for Founders Elementary. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the attached employment contract for the 25-26 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Jackie, roll call.
Christopher Boyes,
Yes.
Mark Sherbat,
Abstain?
Vante Bynum,
Yes.
Kristen Bailey. Yes. Nick Atwood,
Yes.
Steve Byers.
Yes.
Jose Jaquez.
Yes.
All right, moving into presentations. First presentation is the Class Size Advisory Task Force.
Brought to us by Dina Sweet, President of DCTA
You gotta play this.
and group. He's got a whole
How
group.
about that and you play?
Can you see that good?
I got a whole team back there.
We are a team.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Dina Sweet. I am an 8th grade language arts teacher at Clinton Rosette and now currently co-president of DCTA. We have a great team behind us for our class size task force. Jane Louise, Maurice McDavid, Jen Hilliard, Ms. Parker, obviously, there's several more that couldn't be with us tonight. But our purpose, basically, this task force was formed
Back in 2019 with our first DCTA negotiation then, and then renegotiated in 2023. We previously shared a presentation, and we'll go over some of that, what we shared last time. But the biggest piece of what came out of our committee then led into the adoption and our building of Mitchell Elementary. Based on our MOU, which is attached, several teachers are awarded grants or stipends who exceed the class size, and those are listed below. The stipend was increased from $250 to $300 with the 2023 contract, so you can see how much we've paid out so far. Before I get into anything, I just want to reiterate that research consistently shows that smaller class sizes generally lead to better student outcomes, particularly in early grades and for low-risk populations, which is what we have. It improves their academics, enhanced learning for all, increased engagement, and reduces the achievement gap. It also improves student-teacher relationships. So the recommendations that we have, we're gonna continue to work as a committee. 4 times a year, 3 times a year?
3 times a year.
3 times a year. But we encourage all board members to come into our buildings, see where we're at, observe in our buildings for a day. You get a real sense of how crowded we are, truly. So our goals for the 23-24 year, our recommendations were, again, to open up the new school, elementary school. And because of that, we had to maintain our current thresholds. So at K-5, we're generally at 28 students. And for grades 6 through 12, we're at 35. Now, we've added FTEs like social workers and things like that to help with improvement and assistance, paraprofessionals, but really our goal was to get those class sizes down. Some considerations to think about is our two-way dual language program, our special education programs, our bilingual classes, and then the size space at Malta. Those classrooms are vastly smaller than any of the other buildings. Additional items to think about are mobiles being used at 5 of our buildings back then, and then phases of the different facilities for the next several years. And all of this also comes through FFC as well. So we talk about this in that committee as well. Any questions so far? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Just so I understand what you're saying, that the stipend that were given out over the last year were based on classrooms that had more than 28 students K-5 and 35 students 6 through 12?
Correct. But the what you show in the presentation is over the lifetime of the contract since we've implemented the MOU from 2019. So that's from 2019 until now.
The stipend
Those
numbers.
payouts, yes.
Okay, so we didn't have 6 classrooms last year of over 35
Correct,
students?
correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Great question.
I have another question with that
Sure.
too. I'm just clarification, is it like $250 for the academic year? That's the full stipend?
So actually, what happens is we do it twice a year, once in October and once in March.
Okay,
So a particular person, a teacher may get it twice in a year,
okay,
that particular stipend.
okay.
So, yeah.
And what's the max, like overage that you would allow? Not money, I'm not talking about the money, I'm
No,
talking
she's
about,
talking about the actual students.
like I've taught before, does not seem
Teachers
worth it to me, that's why I was just curious.
She can give you real numbers.
Yeah.
So the MOU is a good place to start to really understand this. There's actually a chart in there, and in the chart, it shows the thresholds. So through the academic year that just ended, Anyone that exceeded 28 students in their classroom, or if they were a bilingual class, 25 students. Anyone that exceeded that by whatever number of students get a one-time stipend. The measuring periods are October and March. Starting next year, those class size thresholds are reduced to 25.
For elementary.
For elementary, thank you. And then 21 for bilingual. And then it remains the same for secondary classrooms.
Is that students to teachers? So when you have the supported classrooms of two certified PEL teachers, that they could have 38 in it and they're not violating because that's only 19 per teacher.
So it's for core classes only. So this is not for all classes in the district. It's core classes and PE. So in those classes, if the number of students exceed the threshold, then those teachers are paid.
Per teacher.
And the middle school level's a little bit different with averages. So if there's generally a co-teacher in there, it would be the average of all of theirs, so it's a little different.
Thank you.
And that stipend was $250. It recently increased to $300. And like Dina clarified, that is over the life of this MOU. The total is the $6,500.
To get to the root of what I think Kristen's question was, I think she was saying what's like the ceiling, where it's like, well, I think what she means though is like, is there a absolutely, we will not let a teacher have 35 kids?
Yes.
The attempt is not to exceed the threshold limit at all. But the interesting part about this, the measurement dates are based on a particular date. An October 1st date and a March 1st date. So on those particular days, if that class roster exceeds the threshold number, then that teacher's paid the stipend. So the plan is not to exceed the threshold, but with students coming and going on those measurement dates, sometimes it does happen. When it has happened, it's been 2 students at the most that have been over the threshold. So not a significant number, but nevertheless, definitely impacting the number of students in that class. So we want to stay at the threshold. And the principals and the office professional do a really good job of monitoring that. So as students move in, they really look at what the numbers are, and they look at where the best place is to place that student. If it does cause class size overload, they will talk to the teacher and say, hey, I really need the student to move into your classroom for these very specific reasons. They will talk about the stipend at that point if necessary, if it's still that number on the measurement dates. But if they have to increase that class size, they have a conversation with them. And the teacher and the administrator work together to determine whether that's the right move or not.
One question, and this might be slightly outside the scope, but with these classes that are, above the threshold, is there a metric in place where we're guaranteeing that these classrooms have like an additional para at all times? Because I know we've not had a full roster of paras, so is there a priority for it? If we know this teacher is going to have more than 28 K5, are we ensuring that there's extra hands for those occasions?
So that is not something that was taken into consideration or written into the MOU, but it varies by every class because there could be X number of assistants in that classroom or a co-taught classroom. It's all by happenstance, depending on the students, IEPs, 504s, and other special needs that students may have. But specifically based on student enrollment, there is not a provision that addresses adding additional hands or assistants based on enrollment.
Okay, thank you.
If that's something you'd like to talk about, though, we could absolutely talk about it. But it is not currently something built into that MOU.
I would think also that the administrators in the building would notice that and see if, the teacher would go to the administrator and say, hey, really, I need extra hands, I need, especially when you're talking those lower levels, kindergartens, first grades, where you really need more hands on anyways. I would hope that then the administrator would come to the district office and request.
Right, and my concern is, I'm sure the desire for the teachers is there. I just want to make sure there is a construct for them to have a right to such things.
I agree.
Absolutely, but keeping in mind that it's based on a single measurement date, so October 1st and March 1st. So the days around that, like it could be the day where move-ins were happening, move-ins or move-outs were happening, and I'm not taking away from the fact that teachers have a significant number of students in their class, but the measurement date is based on 2 exclusive dates.
Okay. So then, recommendations for moving forward, obviously, Leroy Mitchell will open up in August. So that will reduce elementary class sizes to 25. We're gonna maintain our thresholds at the middle school, at 35 right now because we just don't have anywhere to put them. And continue to approve FTEs as needed and award the stipends as needed. Again, 2-way dual language considerations, special education, bilingual, and Malta. One thing I do wanna bring up, really important though, to maybe just put a little bug in your ear for, moving forward, is ELDC and their space right now being at Huntley Middle School. That takes up twofold. One, they don't have their own space that is purely for their developmental needs. And then 2, we're taking up probably 6 to 10 classrooms from Huntley that could be utilized to reduce class sizes at the middle school level. So just a thought about our recommendations moving forward are gonna continue to push for ELDC to have their own space, their own building. So just some things to be thinking about. Facilities though, mobiles, will still be used at 3 of the buildings versus 5, which is great. And again, we'll continue to work with the facilities department and FFC moving forward. Anything else?
The use of, or the removal of the mobiles from the 2 buildings, is that bringing most of them were either music rooms or media centers, right, libraries?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I think except for Lincoln's would stay, yes.
But I mean, is that bringing those elements back into the building?
So having those mobiles allows us to have music out in the mobile. If we got rid of mobiles, we'd have like traveling music, I guess.
But we're getting rid of 2. So of the 2 we're getting rid of, is that bringing those elements back in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, I
So would we have smaller classrooms if we kept the mobiles out there? Even smaller than 25? Or wouldn't it change anything, Jen?
No,
Okay.
no. The class sizes are just being reduced purely due to
Come to
Mitchell
the mic if
opening.
you don't mind.
Oh, the class sizes are just being reduced purely by Mitchell opening. What that does is it just frees up a space like from a room that was maybe used for DC or Seoul that might be moving to Mitchell, that then frees up a room for music to come back in the building.
Thank you.
Not at Cortland, but. Just saying, just saying. Are there any questions?
Just to be clear, to reiterate what I heard Dina say, is that the 10 classrooms that we currently utilize at the Huntley campus could, instead of it being used for the ELDC, they can be rebuilt back into a Huntley Middle School
Correct.
classroom for students.
Correct.
If we could then build something else separate for ELDC that's more appropriate for their learning environment for the itty bitty
Correct.
people. That's what I heard say.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, and other than that, we're kind of at a loss as to how to move, our 3 through, or 5, 6 through, whatever, 6, 12, our middle grades, our secondary, how to move them along with class sizes to reduce those.
And that's why I'd like to reiterate what Dina said as well.
Can you
about-
stand up for the?
Oh, sorry. And that's why I would like to reiterate what Dina said as well, inviting board members to please come visit school facilities so that you can see how they're utilized, whether they're designed, built, appropriate for students. And so when there are proposals or requests, you understand why those things might be happening.
So this committee will continue to meet because it is part of the MOU, it's contractual language. So we will continue to meet and we will be back before you next year as well. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Good
right.
job.
And now for presentation B, end of year strategic plan update and department updates. Strap in, guys.
So we are going to start with our end of the year data. For those new school board members, this is something that we do 3 times a year. We will come before you again in the beginning of the year, and then in the middle of the year, which is right around January, and then we'll again be in front of you at the end of the year. This is because we want to share with you and very importantly, our families that we serve our community. And we are engaging in what is being coined 360 accountability, meaning that people are not just accountable that work for us, you know, at the district office or work for the school board, but everyone is accountable and we are accountable to everyone. More importantly, we are accountable to the 6,700 and almost 90 kids that we service. So the last day of the school year, that was our number. That's how many souls we are required to and obligated to. And honestly, I'd like to say have the honor and privilege to serve. So we recognize that as we share this data with you, we have a long way to go. It's not pretty in some areas, and we know that we have to put some things in place to not just be pretty, but to do right by our students. So, Dr. Dahl.
Thank you for that introduction, and Mr. Boyes for yours as well. That's exciting. We have a lot of data and a lot of slides. I'm going to try to go through it at an appropriate pace, but I am happy to present in a conversational style. So at any point, if you have questions, please stop me. Most of the data comes from our MAP benchmark, which we talked about at the last meeting. That's our benchmark assessment that we give 3 times a year to determine whether our students are where we want them to be or whether we've got some work to do and make decisions about what interventions are appropriate for which students. So the first set of data we're going to talk about is related to our interdisciplinary units that are being implemented. Our 4th grade students, the class of 2033, have had our interdisciplinary units for 2 years now. They're being written and kind of rolling up with that group of kids. So this is their reading data from first when they had our older style curriculum, and then last year, starting in the spring of '24, the first year of implementation with our interdisciplinary units when they were in 3rd grade, and now they've had the first year of implementation for interdisciplinary units as 4th graders as well. So you can see these charts look very much like a lot of the ones that will be presented. Sorry for the explanation for those of you that are not new to the board, but in case you are, we tend to present our data in these quartiles. So obviously, the red quartile is the 1st through 25th percentile, so that's students that are in the bottom quartile when compared to their peers nationwide. The blue is the top quartile of students nationwide. Green and yellow, I'm going to assume you can figure out. So as you can see, we had 50% of our students 2 springs ago in this group of kids that were in the bottom quartile nationally, and that number has been reduced to 44. We're moving the right direction. One reason that we would like to also track the class of 2034 is that we know anytime you've got the first year of implementation, there will be hiccups. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those students that are 4th graders next year that have had the 2nd year of implementation, so the second time a teacher's gone through things. So we're encouraged by this data and hope to see further growth in the future. I have ACT data for you from our high school. This is the first year that Illinois has switched back to using the ACT as the benchmark assessment rather than the SAT. We're not entirely certain what that will mean for benchmarking. Illinois has not released what they would consider the benchmark for students to have to hit to be considered proficient in Illinois. So the benchmark you see on these next slides is the national benchmark of what ACT says allows a student to be prepared. This is our ACT composite score distribution. The black line on each of these graphs is what ACT itself considers to be proficient. So this is our ACT math score and our ACT composite score, distribution by race, and this is overall distribution for math. So the higher the bar, the more students scored 13, for example, or 25, and the lower the shaded area gets, the fewer students scored that. And again, I'm just going to encourage you to ask questions as you have them. These are the graphs that are a bit more familiar. These are the national composite percentile groups. As a reminder, the ACT is taken by our junior students. So as you can see, we've got the opportunity gap presenting itself as well in ACT, as we've seen in our map data throughout the years.
What was the y-axis again? Sorry. What is the y-axis?
I'm sorry, for which slide?
For the composite score
This one right here?
distribution.
Up
No,
here.
yes.
Got it.
This.
This is the score, the composite score in ACT. So the max is, I'm sorry, the
So 0,
y-axis, no,
20,
I'm sorry.
40, 60.
The y-axis is the number of students that have scored. So you've got all the way over.
Number of students?
Yes. So over here, this goes up to 35 with our high composite score for this junior class was 35. Perfect would be 36. And so this is up here, you've got, I'm going to guess that's 23 and a half or 23, 24. So of students who scored 13.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep. In this, so this color would be students of Hispanic or Latino background. This is basically the same way to look at that information, but a different way to look at the same information, so divided by race or ethnicity. Math score distribution and the college readiness math benchmark, grand total, and then divided by race or ethnicity. And this is the average math score and benchmark. And then we've got the same charts, but for English. Certainly, these are also in your slide deck that you would have received that are publicly available. So if you have questions after today as well, happy to answer those. Freshmen on track is our next chunk of data. Just a reminder that we look at freshmen on track as a metric in part because we know it is incredibly predictive of a student's likelihood to graduate from high school. It is more predictive than their race, socioeconomic status, or their prior achievement. In fact, it's more likely than all of those things combined. It is also important to us because it is tracked by the state of Illinois, and it factors into our summative designation for the high school. It is 8.33% of our summative designation. Another way of thinking about that is that we could get 8.33 points toward our score from having a high ninth grade on track score. The high school tracks this carefully. They have a lot of time and energy devoted to getting our number of students who are on track to be as high as possible. This is our longitudinal data for this measure. So as you can see back in the spring of 21, 22, our freshman on track our percentage was 63. It is 77 currently. We expect that this will go up a little bit with our extended school year opportunities that students do have to go back and complete summatives and assessments and extend their learning in the hopes of raising their grades if they scored at least a 55%. Yeah. This is our suspension data, which we always report with the same information.
Dr. Mel?
Yes,
One quick question about the freshman on track.
yes.
Does it mean like literally what the words are?
It sure does, yeah.
At the end of the year, they have the credits that would be required if they continued at that pace to graduate?
Yes.
Okay.
Very good intuition. Essentially, it is how many of your core classes have you failed? The reason that's a little tricky is because as a freshman, art is not a core class. But if you're a senior who's credit deficient, you better pass art, right? So it's a little tricky for that reason, which is why we make sure that we look at it as carefully as we can and try to really look at who are those 23% of students that we need to have extremely serious conversations with and try to provide every opportunity to get them back where they need to be because we want them all graduating on time. All right, suspension data. So this is the number of suspensions and the percentages of students who have been suspended, which is mildly confusing. So on the left, you'll see this year's numbers, and on the right, the same period last year. So we had almost the same number of students suspended overall, but there were more suspensions this year, which means higher rate of recidivism, right? So you've got more students the students have more suspensions per student, but not necessarily a big jump in the number of students who receive any suspension. This is divided by grade band, elementary, middle, and high school. This is our student suspension data that is disaggregated by demographics, and a number that we watch very closely because while we would prefer none of our students are ever suspended, certainly we would like our students to be suspended at the same rate across all race and ethnicity groups, and that is not what we have. We have disproportionate data in which our African American students continue to be suspended more than students in other groups. Although we have seen growth in this area over the past several years, we're down about 10 points of disproportionality overall, which is, again, progress. This is our attendance data. Overall, district-wide, we're averaging 92%, which is better than we had seen immediately after COVID. And this is the breakdown by grade and by school building. This is our assessment data for the end of the year, starting with MAP growth. This is a familiar chart, which I included only because board members who have a bit more seniority will be familiar with it. This was confusing to everyone all the time. So at the suggestion of the strategic plan committee, which Dr. Bailey, I understand you'll be joining us on, which is great, we have split those two. So these are the percentages of students who met their growth goal. One of the very nice things about our benchmark assessment is that it tells us approximately how many points each student should be growing based on how that student has done previously. So they don't expect all kids are going to grow the same amount. So based on what MAP expects of them, given their glut of data nationwide, these are the number of students that met the growth benchmark. This one is very much like a light switch. They either crossed the line or they didn't, which is why I prefer this one. So this is all of the growth totaled up for all of our kids compared to how much all of them in total were expected to grow. So if you got real close to that line but didn't quite cross it, you still count as toward the success of your grade level. And if you went way past the line and grew tremendously more than you were expected to, you count for all of the extra growth you did as well. So you can see we've got some really bright spots. The middle school math in particular, we seem to see students just growing a ton, which is fantastic. And our third grade had a lot of growth this year as well. This is the same metrics, but for ELA, so for our MAP reading test. Again, this is the confusing one. And this is the one that is the light switch on or off. So any place you've got more than 50%, we can feel pretty good about that. More than 50% of our students are meeting that benchmark of growth expected for them. And this is the percentile of growth for that grade level compared to the rest of the country, what you would expect. So we know this is helping us identify the areas where we can applaud the efforts that are being made and the accomplishments, and also where we might want to devote more attention to looking at the curriculum and how it's being delivered. Here are elementary literacy assessments, MAP reading English. These are our reading percentile groups K-5 district-wide, so all of our elementary students. These are the percentile groups over the last 6 testing periods, so the last 2 school years. This is by grade. I think one of the best uses for MAP is this kind of curricular assessment where we're looking grade-wide to say, okay, where do we need to be paying more attention? This really helps with that rather than just individual students. And these are our reading percentile groups by race and ethnicity. Again, something that we want to make sure we're focusing on is how are we serving all of our students. And this is reading percentile groups K-5 by low income status. These are the elementary literacy assessments for MAP reading in Spanish. This is the district-wide. So students that are in our 2- and 1-way dual language programs take MAP reading both in English and in Spanish. In 5th grade this year, our students who took this test come from a Spanish-speaking background. But in grades K through 4, the students may speak only English at home. In fact, about half of them do. So this is how they've done over the last 6 testing periods. What I find interesting, well, I guess I'll keep that to myself, it's already 7:54. This is by grade. And then by low income status. It is the most equitable data every single time we do this presentation. Students who qualify for free and reduced lunch and those who do not do about the same. This is the same, this is MAP math for K-5, percentile groups for everybody. This is over the last 6 testing periods. So progress is being made incrementally. And this is by grade and by race and ethnicity. Again, please feel free to stop me. And this is by low income status. Now we've got the same data but for our middle school students. MAP reading percentile groups for everyone in middle school over the last 6 testing periods. This is by grade, so 8th grade 1. And this is by race or ethnicity. By low income status, So you're more than twice as likely to be in the red if you qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then our literacy assessments for math, reading, Spanish, our one-way program is in the middle schools, not two-way yet. So this would only be students that have Spanish in their background, they speak Spanish at home or come from a Spanish-speaking background. However, keep in mind, once students reach a threshold that their English proficiency is high enough that they are no longer taking the access test, they may no longer be in programming, in which case they're not taking the Spanish test anymore. So it's a little bit of a self-selecting group, if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, stop me. This is our Spanish reading percentile groups over the last 6 testing periods. It's kind of spiky. This is a much smaller group of students because it's one way and not two way. So we don't necessarily have simultaneous bilingual. So a small number of students can really change the percentiles significantly. And this is by grade. And by low income status. Here we have our math assessments, 6-8 district-wide, over the last 6 testing periods, by grade. I find these really interesting and want to pause and talk about them for a second. We have a number of 7th grade students who are taking algebra, which is traditionally a freshman in high school course, as 7th grade students, and we have far more students that are in 8th grade that are taking algebra. So this is how they're doing on the algebra test. It is not the same map test that our other students are taking. So you can see our 7th grade students are absolutely doing a fantastic job, and the 8th grade students are doing very, very well. But what this actually says to us as educators is we need to get more kids in these classes. While this looks great, we want to have the 7th graders that can score in the yellow and green have the opportunity to be exposed to this curriculum as well. One of the great things about the shift in this middle school schedule for next year is that more students will have the opportunity to be in those classes, because this sure looks like there are students out there that are ready for this curriculum, and so we're going to find them.
I guess my only question with that is are we, I guess, not flipping the causation and correlation kind of with that? These students aren't doing that well on the map test because they're in the algebra course. They're in the algebra course because they're already so proficient in math that they're there that early.
Yes and no. If they're in the algebra course, they're exposed to the curriculum that's allowing them to take the algebra map test. So this is, again, it's a completely different test. And I agree with you that we do not want to give algebra to every 7th grade student. They're not all ready for it developmentally. They're not all ready for it in terms of their schoolwork. That's true. This is a fairly staggering graph. We don't want to have, for example, 25, 25, 25, 25. That would make no sense. But there are certainly students that scored in the blue and maybe even the green on the regular 7th grade test who could have been pushed. And then who knows what, so it's really, my favorite analogy maybe of all time is thinking about the course that you're placed in like a pair of shoes. You don't want them to be too small because then they'll be pinching your toes, but if your shoes are too big, you may also get blisters, which I should have mentioned before I had been standing up here for 15 minutes, just makes me want to take my own shoes off. But I do think that making sure we're getting all of our kids in the most appropriate class for them is something we have to continue to look at, because this is great, but it also tells us there's other people out there, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make a little bit some sense, Chris? But you're correct. I think it is the correlation that we want to consider. And this says to me that we haven't found every kid for whom, whether it is they're doing well because they're in that class or they're in that class because they're doing well. It doesn't really matter. Let's give them the curriculum. Let's see what they can do. Let's provide them with that challenge.
Going back to our last
Sure.
presentation, aren't the algebra class, especially in the 7th grade, aren't they a smaller group of students taking those classes? So those class sizes are way different than the class sizes of gen ed.
So our 7th grade students, this year I believe will be the first year that we may have some sections, so the fall of 25. We may have some sections where there are 7th grade students only in an algebra class, but historically, whether you were in 6th grade, 7th grade, or 8th grade taking algebra, you were all in the same room. So yes and no. There may be, anytime we're talking about adding additional levels, one of the problems is then your denominator is so much smaller that shifting between 2 sections of something and 3, you may have a widely different number of kids in that classroom, right? Because you may be talking about 100 kids. In that case, I hope you're talking about 4 or 5 sections. Yeah, go ahead.
And the goal has been to get as many students into having access to that higher level of education. And we try not to gatekeep, but honestly, and because of the scheduling in middle school before, I know from middle school scheduling, we would max out at 35, and there may have been some students that could have got in there, but because we didn't have the space, they ended up going to the other class. And we know that for their career, for their educational career, for that trajectory, if you expose it to them in 7th grade, it can make a huge difference for the rest of their lives.
Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, this is our 7th grade advanced students, so they did take the 6+ MAP test like everyone else. This is not a different test, but again, this is better, Chris, this is more what we'd want to see, where it's, 2177 and then 2, but we'd like to see a little bit, even a little more variety, a little more color, would be great. So, but it's exciting, that's good stuff. Math percentile groups by race or ethnicity, and by low income status. This is across all of middle school. And that's it. What questions do you have? Yeah, Dr. Bailey.
So I'm trying to decide when to ask these. One of the questions I have is, do you look at data, and I don't know that you can, and I also am very aware that these tend to follow a similar trajectory, but do we look at the data for things like race and low income status overlaid with one another?
Sure, yes. One of the things that we need to work on as a community is that we have a lot of overlap in those groups. So we tend to see some of our racial and ethnic groups have much higher levels of qualifying for free and reduced lunch. And that is something that we need to work on together. So we do look at sort of what is that intersection, what's the, of those things. In fact, a board member several boards ago said, I'm not sure why we have to look at both. Can we just look at low income? Really, we want to make sure we're looking at both, right? And disaggregating as fully as possible. Yes, we used to present that data separate. I think there was maybe one time that we presented that data separately. So for our students who happen to be Asian here and qualify for free and reduced lunch or don't, and it's so many slides that we've reduced it to, yeah.
So I was just wondering if you did that though, if it exists or if it's something you've kind of.
We have moved away from it because of, in order for data to be actionable, we want people to have the appetite to talk through it and come up with solutions. But as a member of the strategic plan committee, among the things that we tasked with is figuring out what is the best format to present our benchmarking data to the board and general public. So I welcome all conversations about that. I know that these can be not mind-numbing, but maybe eye-numbing because there's so many colors that look very, it's a lot. And so we want to make sure we are highlighting our areas of concern as well as our things that we're proud of. And coming up with a good way to do that, I look forward to having those conversations. I'm excited for that.
Okay, and then another question I had in regard to how things are presented. I don't know if it would be beneficial, but I'm wondering about the numbers of students represented by each graph alongside the percentiles, so we can see like where they might be more significant.
We also did that,
versus
yeah.
others.
That's also
Okay.
something we did in the past. Happy to add it again. So this is probably further in the weeds than we care to get to, but in order to add the number in a parentheses next to each of those percentiles, you have to go in and manually click it and type it, which.
These were created.
Correct. And anytime you're typing something in by hand, you significantly increase the risk of getting it wrong. And we want to make sure that we're being that we're presenting all of the information as accurately as possible and not being disingenuous in any way. Yes. However, we can go back to adding I don't know what the appetite would be for this. We can go back to adding a table that lists what number of students that is, but then it asks the audience to sort of do that crosswalk between table and graph.
Yeah.
And that we found to not lead to productive conversations either, but open to exploring.
Technology.
Well, right, yeah. It's, we're certainly open to exploring any and all options.
I'd add that also in the strategic planning committee, we do have much deeper discussions about data. Again, it's in an actual board administrative committee. The public is welcome to come and be parts of that. It's a district administrative committee, and so people, we do have a parent on there, and other people are welcome to come in and have those conversations. But for purposes like this, we would be here till midnight, so, yeah.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I think you guys are great.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
And now for all of our department heads to give us their strategic end of year update.
I will go first. We started off the year in the Improvement and Innovation Department, and our focus was based on a lot of things that came out of what was named another department. But our main two focuses were to increase and elevate student voice, as well as to identify in each of the school buildings gaps that existed and to have a plan in place of how we were going to address those gaps. So this year, each school did identify and implement how they're going to integrate student voice. And myself and several other directors did things like meet with principals. We went in and we observed principals during different interactions like staff meetings and some professional development that they provided to their staff. We also, in the department, we knew that comprehensive guidance documents did not exist. And what that is in the HR world, they call it standard operating procedures. So if one person was doing the job for, let's say, 25 years, and then they won the lottery, the person who came behind them oftentimes didn't have anything documented, something written down and say, this is how you do this job well. And so that was also a goal of ours. And also for myself personally as a director was to enhance my own data literacy, because I wanted to understand that orange and black slide that Jessica always presents. I said, when I get to the point that I can explain that slide, I know that I have done a little bit better. So I've worked specifically with Dr. Null, sometimes one-on-one, and then I've also, I'm doing some outside research as well, and so I've also worked with people from NIU, really to just become more data literate educator. And then our culture coach in the I&I department did complete an Illinois State Board of Education Facilitator Fellowship, which was a 9-month process, and it was pretty much like taking 2 college-level courses, and she did that so that she can better serve and partner with our teachers.
For Priority 1 student achievement, using facilities, it can be a little more challenging to connect that from a student achievement level for our department. The main thing that we focused on this year is the Mitchell Elementary building. By getting that building up and running on time, it does create more space for our staff and students, and that was the primary focus for our goal this year, and we are on time and under budget.
So we're speaking for budgets. Business office had major tasks this year. We negotiated 3 union agreements. We provided considerations for their work with fiscal responsibility. We also had Mitchell Elementary School open up, or at least be completed with construction, with scheduled payments and being paid out of state funds, with no cost overrun and on-time payments. We also closed Transition Center. It opened in January 25, and it's running its programs. We also worked for TIF 4. We proposed an agreement signed by all 9 taxing bodies and the city, giving their approval for our proposal and the shared benefit the IGA was providing. So we were able to allow revenue generated by this TIF 4 to be distributed to all taxing bodies in similar formula to our current TIF 3. This allowed us to maintain some funds for the district that would have otherwise be diverted. We are collaborating with academic departments and school administration to work more efficient and effective resource coordination of sources of funds, including grants, budgets, and other streams of funds. We piloted a program with ISB called Resource Allocation Review, and we're already on the way implementing their framework. Our ongoing projects are to share our financial goals with community, either through the FFC group and website and other means. Thank you.
I apologize, I only hit on priority 1, so I'm gonna jump back on my other 3 priority levels just real quick. The priority 2, our focus has been on community engagement, and with the marketing priority is to increase our community use. Our department manages the facility use of our buildings by outside groups, and when our buildings move between buildings to use spaces such as Lincoln comes to the Huntley Middle School to use. We are implementing a new software system to make it more efficient and more user-friendly, and to also provide us a better tracking mechanism for our facility use throughout the district, and that will be implemented and rolled out in August when we return to school.
So with pushing for more community involvement and usage of our facilities, I guess we can roll out a brand spanking new nice software. Are we still blacking out pretty much the entire period of the year where people would want to rent our facilities though? Because if we say, hey, you can only rent from us when our doors are open and our students are using the facilities all year, it's pretty useless and we're not making any money off of it over the summer when all of these travel ball, rec leagues and things are going on that we would get the money from.
We can look at other options. It is more challenging in the summer to be able to open our buildings up because that is the time of year that we have the opportunity to clean our buildings from top to bottom and ensure that we have it ready for our students and staff to return in August. It's also a time for our construction projects. And if you've ever been in any of our buildings during construction season, they are, they're quite a mess for a while, which also delays our cleaning process. Not to say it can't be revised and reconsidered. We do try to open it whenever possible. The high school is one of our busiest buildings, obviously, which makes it even more challenging because it is so frequently used by our own student population, athletes, fine arts, et cetera. But again, that can be something we can reconsider and see if there are ways to do it. It's just not always the easiest way to go about that, and to give up that time to do construction and cleaning that's necessary, then we may lose out on opportunities to do the construction that's necessary and the upgrades we need to throughout the summer. The third priority, financial stability. For that, we have a 5-year plan, which will be brought to you in the fall. It's a 5-year facility plan that we update on a regular basis. Once we get through our summer projects, we'll be updating that information, and that'll be presented to the board. Budget, and Mitch, I already mentioned, is under budget. And then the last thing, for our human capital and recruitment priority, we are in a transition period with our department. Our day shift custodial supervisor retired last year, and we have a new supervisor in place. Our maintenance and ground supervisor is retiring later this year, and so we'll be looking to get his replacement in place so that we can train, and then my retirement is next year. So out of the 4 supervisors in our department, we'll have 3 new coming in over the next year or 2. So that succession plan is underway, and we'll be bringing more information forward as we progress through that. All right, thank you.
So HR really does touch all the priorities, but we live in priority 4, human capital, recruitment, development, and retainment. So we have implemented a number of new systems to streamline our work, but also create efficiencies. But some of those rollouts have been more time consuming than we expected. So we are continuing to improve our onboarding and customer service process through our onboarding, and have a lot of exciting new plans coming for the start of the 25-26 school year. I always have to remember what year we're in. So we're excited about a new year starting for us and creating more efficiency and getting people excited about joining the D428 family. We are continuing to build partnerships with colleges and universities. We have a strong connection right now with Grand Canyon University because we have some partnerships where they're helping to grow our paraprofessionals into teachers, and we're excited about those cohorts. We continue to work with NIU, but the DeKalb name is getting out there, so we have more and more colleges and universities reaching out to us for internship opportunities, for clinical hours, but also student teaching opportunities. We continue to work towards the creation and finalization of handbooks. We're doing an unaffiliated staff handbook, also a handbook for our administrators, because everybody just needs to know what the rules of engagement are, need to know how to follow process and procedure and to accomplish their end goals. We, as our mayor mentioned, supported and participated in the negotiation of 3 contracts. We are getting those implemented for our July 1st kickoffs. So as related to hiring for all of those 3 units, as well as just other initiatives associated with each of those contracts. Thanks.
Evening. From a technology perspective, with strategic priority 1, the goal was to continue the success of our one-to-one programming and finding ways to enhance it, including increasing the return on investment. Also enhancing our cybersecurity posture. So we actually mitigated the increasing costs of our one-to-one devices for the 25-26 school year by saving the district more than 10% per device of the total purchase. We did that by working again very strategically with the business department, working with the board, and trying to get these things in front of you guys usually before the holiday break, so that way we can guarantee receiving the devices by July. And also we were able to mitigate many of the price fluctuations that occurred post election. And then as well as a Google reference district, we have been able to introduce advanced features from AI to our cybersecurity to the platform, which is something they only rolled out to a handful of customers, which kind of put us at a strategic advantage for a couple things. For strategic priority 2 was to work collaboratively with the communications director to enhance our outside-facing website and successfully migrate from our current mass communication system to Parent Square. And I can honestly say with the addition of the FTE, with Kevin Wood kind of joining onto the team, the website and multimedia specialist position, we've been able to be very agile in our ability to sort of present information to the community as a whole. Social media, Kevin was at our graduation taking pictures, so we had some nice real-time event information shared with our families and the community. Strategic priority 3 from a technology perspective was working collaboratively with the business department, the grant manager, to appropriately size the technology department budget. So the same as our mayor discussed, working very closely with the various departments, but especially with the increasing costs that are happening in the technology field, as well as the cybersecurity portion of it, we're seeing increasing costs of upwards to 33% on some of these products and platforms. So being able to work, with the business department and quickly streamline when we can purchase something and trying to maximize the ROI or trying to lock in on multi-year agreements in order to drive down costs, especially with the uncertainty of the future, has been able to save the district money. And for strategic priority 4 was to attract and retain IT professionals and assist the HR department with their frontline migration. And again, so part of the journey of my department is to make sure that there's continual professional development. I can happily say that one of our core members just got a certification last week. Several of our current hourly staff are working on certifications as well. So we like to prepare them as well to be able to either join the team as a full-time FTE down the road or to find a career within information technology by the time they leave. So, thanks.
Billy and I will share this one. Teaching and learning, student achievement and growth is the heart of the work that we do. And as Dr. Null had shared during the end of the year data presentation, it's very important for us to look at what are the grade level standards, our course placement, our course offerings, the trajectory that our students will need to be successful in what post-secondary path that they have. We make sure that we have, as you've seen through past board meetings and upcoming future, additional course offerings, new curriculum, different professional development to support all of our classrooms. She'd also referenced the two-way dual language roll-up. We're really excited about that with the 4th and 5th grade done. Currently working on the 6th grade, a lot of exciting movement there and watching the staff write that curriculum and prepare for those students to reach the middle school and then to the high school. And also continuing the focus on conversations around data. We've spent a lot of time with our PLCs. We're sending leaders this summer to Chicago for extensive PLC professional development, collaboration with I&I, student services, and building principals to make sure that the important work that is done each time that we have PLCs surrounds the work to support all of our students where they're at. And then with community engagement, the high school has continued their monthly sessions. Our buildings continue their family engagement nights, and they're already getting on the calendar now for next year. The orientation dates and open houses, which is exciting to see roll out, really looking forward to those. And then also utilizing the communication department to make sure that we're having timely feedback to our families about the different programming and events that we support.
So I'll go ahead and cover 3 and 4, and I'm gonna use this because I'm guessing it's up here for a reason, right? So the big one with strategic priority number 3, our finances, we really look to see how we could maximize our spending with our grant funds prior to using our local funds. So we met earlier with our mayor this year to talk about our budget for TNL for next school year, and he said, why do you need additional funding if you're not using it? Well, it's not that we're not using it, it's that we're maximizing our grant spending prior to our local funds. So the local funds right now are unstable because we don't know what's gonna happen after the presidential election, right? Those are unstable, so we are remaining to keep those, but we're gonna use the grants as much as possible. And then the last one was, I wouldn't say it was seamless, but the hiring process at Mitchell. We have been fortunate enough to, I think there were some doubters that we weren't gonna be able to fill Mitchell with certified teachers, and we have filled all classroom teacher vacancies or FTE at Mitchell Elementary, along with some others as well. We still need assistance, but I mean, that's something that we are struggling across the board, and hopefully with the new contract, we're able to recruit more. So that's where we're at as teaching and learning.
All right, good evening. And last but not least, student services. You know, I'm standing up before you talking about a lot of the work that's been done by many of my team members. So I'm really happy to kind of share those highlights, but the work really, I'm going to give them the credit for what we've been able to accomplish this year. When it comes to student achievement priority 1, we really leaned into professional learning communities this year, making sure that our related service staff and our special ed teachers have that structure and kind of support and accountability to be able to move forward in their dialogues around what they do for students centered around data. This one was an important one for us because we took a hard look in the mirror from last school year and said, you know, we probably didn't do what we needed to do to set up a good structure. And so we took a huge step for that this year, and the feedback we got at the end of the year was that it was beneficial to the staff that engaged with it. We'll continue to build on that, and as Sarah mentioned, we'll work collaboratively with TNL and I&I and all the other departments to kind of continue our PLC progress. In addition to that, we've continued our work to build out multi-tiered systems of supports for behavior. So, you know, really we're kind of entering next year our 4th year of some systematic work that we've been building out. And I'm really happy to say that every year we've seen some growth. There's definitely pockets where we need to kind of shore some things up. Sometimes supports are impacted by staffing or lack thereof. So we do know there's always going to be some continuous work there, but really making some great steps in our framework. And it's something that I think DeKalb has been highlighted across the state in some of that work. Priority 2, community engagement and marketing. And we really focused in on trying to continue to maintain the community partnerships that we have, Family Service Agency, Safe Passage, RAMP, there's many more than that have been existing for a number of years. But we also wanted to look for more opportunities to continue to build upon those to bring in more supports for students or families. So one of the things that we really leaned into this year was collecting some funds that could be used to then utilize agencies or get more things to students. Daybreak Health is a big one. So we were able to get some a significant number of grant funds. And then in partnership kind of with our DeKalb County Mental Health Board and our other mental health agencies, we were able to supplement what they do by providing free access to mental health services to all students. Sorry, this is going to be a shameless plug. All students in our district, as well as families. So it is something that we can provide that is unique. All right, strategic priority 3. This kind of leans into more of that financial stability. So again, we really looked at grants and where we could bring in some more funds. We were able to obtain a mini grant through IAASE, which is the Illinois Alliance of Administrators of Special Education. And that allowed us to build a greenhouse at the Beyond One Barb Transition Center, which allowed them to start doing some life skills earlier in the winter, and now they're transitioning out in the warmer weather into the ground. So, and I already mentioned Daybreak Health. That was a huge, huge thing for us. We're really proud of that one. And then last but not least, I'm gonna speak to a thumbs down that I gave us. And the thumbs down was probably a reflection of where I was in the moment that I had to say, okay, where are we at with this one? But it really comes down to working with human resources, which that part has been fine. but to fill our hard-to-fill positions. And the ones that have been chronically hard to fill for not only DeKalb, but for many districts like ours across the state and across the country. This is going to continue to be a challenge for us. I read a report earlier today that talked about within the state of Illinois, how many districts are struggling to fill special education or related service staff positions or even administrators. We know the universities are struggling a little bit to kind of produce the staff that we know that not only our district, but every other district is looking for. It's very competitive. I'm not our mayor, but supply and demand comes to mind. There's just not as many people out there, and the supply is really high. So we're gonna have to continue to really roll up our sleeves and look at any opportunity we can to get creative with how we bring in and retain employees. I will end with this. At this point, heading into summer last year, we were short 12 special education teachers. So early June to August, we were able to staff those. We did it creatively. We brought out some retired special ed teachers back, and we were able to still hire some. Where we stand today is around 8. So we still have some work to do, but again, rolling up our sleeves, we showed last year we were able to kind of do what we needed to by August, and we'll do it again.
So for both the HR and for Kyle, I guess teaching and learning also, I was listening to Mike Rowe, and he was talking about to get people into the trades, we don't start in high school, we should start in middle school. Same question to the 3 of you, with 4 of you. Are we looking to start in middle school or try to, I mean, we have administrators, teachers, assistants that all came through our system. Where do we start recruiting them and try to keep them here?
So that's a good question. Where do we start? CTE, career technical education, has become much more real in our schools, where we are starting to have those conversations earlier with students, and they're thinking about, what do I want to do when I grow up? Some of us are still trying to figure that out. So to expect our students to know that, have a hard, fast answer, is kind of unfair. But absolutely, it is something that we need to do. There are organizations such as, help me out, students, I'm sorry? No, not Golden Apple, but students that desire to become a teacher.
Future educators.
Thank you, future educators. So we've had conversations with the high school about Future Educators of America, but that might be something we need to have more broad across the secondary level, including middle school as well. So that is absolutely one strategy that we can address with some more vigor and excitement, but that is one place to start. Right now, things are a little up in the air because of some of the funding that's going on with programs as related to our partnership with NIU and our psychologists, but even Golden Apple and other funded programs through the state and federally, where are those funds going to come from? So I anticipate things might get a little more hairier for us, but there are still conversations that we need to have.
To add on to that, you're absolutely right, JJ, it doesn't start at high school. Exposure starts early in talking about careers. I know the elementaries, I know the middle schools because I've seen it, the exposure through different careers coming into the schools, parent engagement nights, and then also we have recently implemented School Links, which is a career college planning platform that both middle schools have also been using this year, that will continue to expand into next year, with making sure that students are using that. It is a variety of lessons, different career exposures, and course planning software as well that will help the students understand that. And as far as the career tech education and some of the pipelines with that, we've also worked with middle school, high school to build out the PACE framework per ISB, and have our first CNA pipeline for that trajectory. And then we're looking at several others for the future that will soon be built out.
Just to be clear, I was using the CT part as an example.
And Project Lead the Way, sorry.
How we're getting teachers is where I was kind of going with.
Oh, sorry. Well, that would lend itself to, obviously, Dietrich got the memo on that question. So thank you for my TED Talk on those other topics.
I had a question about that too. I don't know what kinds of leeway we have, but in terms of like other pathways into teaching for people like myself, I'm not like saying that, but like people who have been in classrooms and who do have education and training or things like that, that could qualify, like, I don't know what kinds of loopholes there are with the laws, but like making that stuff accessible to people who maybe have the expertise, how do we help them get into this field?
Well, I'm excited to say that when people do come to us, we do work with them. So whether it's us helping them determine their level of qualification or referring them back to the regional office, and the regional office working with them and doing transcript reviews or determining college credits that they've had or work experience that can count towards certification. So that is part of the CTE world. We have had individuals that have been professionals, whether auto mechanics, working in the textile industry, working as a chef or in restaurants, and they have enough college credits coupled with their work experience to qualify them to be an educator.
I wonder how well-known is that people
It's
can come
not.
to you? Because I'm wondering,
Yep.
like, that would seem to be a really helpful way
Mhm.
of recruiting, is just to help people.
And,
know
you know,
that-
it's a little bit of an art and a
tricky.
science because we can't do it for we can't make it work for everyone, but for those that we can, we absolutely capitalize on that. But when folks come to us and express that interest, we absolutely do what we can here and or refer them out. Or if they start at the regional office, then they get referred to the districts that are looking to fill those positions. We could talk about that as a cabinet and as a HR team on how we can identify those folks that may be looking for a career change and determine their level of credentials to be able to do so.
Well, I think that was a great presentation from all of our departments.
I do have, quick follow-up question. How many vacancies do we have going into the 25-26 year? And how does this compare to where we were this time last year?
I can give you those numbers, but it's gonna take me a
Just an
second.
approximate.
I do not remember. I don't want to misquote.
I mean, are we experiencing more vacancy this year than we did last year at this time?
Actually, it is less. I can't tell you how much less,
Right.
but it's less. We've had less turnover this year.
Okay.
However, I will caution you that it's still a little early to speak on that. There are individuals that may be seeking opportunities in other districts that are waiting on board approval, waiting to determine if they're going to continue in the field of education. So we get resignations on an ongoing basis. I would love to be incorrect about that and come back to you and be like, Mark, you did it. We didn't get any more resignations. But it is an ongoing process that tends to happen through the summer. I'm gonna try to find this as quickly as possible.
I just want to find out if we were up or down compared to last year at this time, what the trend was.
I think you could send us an email.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with
I'd be
that.
happy to do so. I can do that.
All right.
Or if you want to put in the weekly update, that would be good too.
Okay.
Right. And these are our buildings that, school improvement plans. You can peruse them at your leisure. If you have any questions, let us know.
All right. Moving into old business. Item A, 2025-2026 subrates and annually employed substitutes pay and benefit. It is recommended the Board of Education approve the 25-26 subrates and increase in pay and sick time benefits for annually employed subs. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. Jackie, the roll call, please.
Steve Byers.
Yes.
Jose Jaquez.
Yes.
Christopher Boyce.
Yes.
Mark Servat.
Yes.
Vante Bynum.
Yes.
Kristen Bailey. Yes. Nick Atwood.
Yes.
Item B, Press Plus 118 release, first reading. Do we feel that we as a board need a second reading? Not hearing that we need a second reading, I will entertain a motion to approve the changes from Press Plus.
So moved.
Second.
Jackie, the roll call, please.
Jose Jaquez.
Yes.
Christopher Boyce.
Yes.
Mark Servat.
Yes.
Vante Bynum.
Yes.
Kristen Bailey.
Yes.
Nick Atwood.
Yes.
Steve Byers.
Yes.
Moving into new business, item A, Kagan Summer Academy Conference, which will be presented by Billy Wermo from Teaching and Learning, and Emily, will you be presenting with him, or?
Yep. So, yep, all three of them are coming up here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so team effort, team request. So we're coming forward tonight to ask for permission for approval, or to come back for approval for the Kagan Summer Academy Conference. It will be funded through teacher vacancy grant. I am gonna pass it off to my colleagues here, and they're gonna explain what it is, why they need to go, and how that's gonna come back and benefit us as a district. And you can see the costs there.
So we would really appreciate going to this conference. The Kagan Cooperative Learning Conference is going to give us a lot of ideas and background knowledge in more of that collaborative learning strategies and tools for our classrooms. Our third grade curriculum team has been working really, really hard the past few years to make our MDUs, and now we're transferring them to the IDUs. And we want our lessons and everything to be extremely collaborative because we want to cultivate that positive classroom environment as well. And so we think that going to this conference is gonna really give us a lot of strategies and tools to better include that in our IDU units as well. Yes, go ahead.
We have no idea what IDU and MDU means.
So MDU is multidisciplinary units. So the data that Dr. Nall was sharing was all of our MAP data and how they were focusing on fourth grade. And last year, third grade started doing all of that. So it's including like social studies, science, reading, all of that into one, and your writing. And so we're watching that progression, and we just
It's like,
saw- yeah.
it's like a lesson plan on steroids.
Yes, that's a great way to say that.
Just easier to say that.
Yes. Let's see. So the goal is to figure out all of these different strategies and include them into our lesson plans. And one of the things that I saw and read up on a couple different ways is how they group their students based on their literacy levels. And that they have like turn-in talks, but using that to kind of foster that collaborative team. And in our lessons, we use something called team tasks where students are working with their groups, but then we are able to pull like one kid from every group back to our table and have a very differentiated literacy group that kind of goes with that social studies or science standard. So with the lower level learners or readers, we're able to give them a lot more background knowledge and kind of give that enrichment to the students that are higher literacy learners. So it creates a lot of natural differentiation within those plans too. So that's why we would like to go. And in going, then our team would be able to come back during Institute Day and share our knowledge with the rest of our staff. And hopefully they would be able to really easily implement those things in their own classrooms, fostering more collaborativeness amongst our whole D428. Do you have any other questions?
I have a question. I'm just wondering, that's a great opportunity sometimes for us to videotape ourselves in showcasing some of the strategies. Would that be something that could happen upon your return? Then that could be a lesson for other teachers to be able to take a look at?
Yeah, we do that stuff all the time.
Yeah, so, not, just to add something, a little bit more, because I'm at Brooks right now, I already talked to like a reading specialist at our school, and they kind of want to already try to implement these strategies, but we've been watching videos that, obviously, we haven't gone to a conference yet, so the idea is if I'm able to go, that's something that I could potentially pilot, record, and then present at our school as well to see how the data will fluctuate, because it's supposed to make it more like student-centered versus like me talking to the kids the whole time. Then the kids can like learn from each other.
Good point. Thank you.
So don't necessarily, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kristen.
Is there a repository for things like that for teachers to access? We do have one? Like an intranet or something where teachers can view these videos of these techniques?
I think it's something, oh, go ahead, why don't you do it?
So our instructional coach team has been talking about building something. We've done that in some buildings, specifically at Brooks. Last year, the instructional coach created a bank that we're calling more like podcasts, because we know our younger teachers, that's exactly how they're learning. We also have trainings where we have these videos of these like short strategies that you can see as we're writing our interdisciplinary units. So I'm kind of spearheading that with my bilingual partner, Sonia Enriquez. And anytime that we have something video that seems like it takes way too long to type out the directions for a teacher, we've been linking a teacher video within the lesson plans. So people can see that in action. And then it's kind of that quick ongoing learning that I didn't have to sit down for an hour and go through this training or this session, but I see directly what is written into my plan in action through that.
I think the benefit to that is that teachers get to see others like them from the same school, same district. It's not, oh, that happens somewhere else. No, it's happening right here. Then they can go to individuals that know them. So it's definitely a much better, more innovative way of bringing back something. So it's more innovative using technology. Mm-hmm.
So that kind of answers my question, but, so we don't need to know what the plan is, but there already is a plan in place on how 3 teachers going to this conference are gonna distribute this information to the hundreds of teachers we have.
And
Okay.
also, whenever we go anywhere, our principals always make us do it at staff meetings, so there's also that in place.
Thank you.
The funding source for this is the teacher vacancy grant. You may not be able to answer this, but maybe staff can. It's regarding travel with the teacher vacancy grant. It supports professional development, but it's supposed to address the teacher shortage, the teacher vacancy grant. How does this address we were just talking about vacancies just now. How does this help us with that situation?
No, I have it, but I would love to.
Go for it.
So I didn't mention that my secondary role is, I am the the co-vice president of DCTA, and have been for 17 years. I think, either as president or vice president. And so and my role is an instructional coach, which I feel like is a direct extension from the teaching and learning department. So I get to see things intersect in different ways that other people don't have the advantage of doing. Okay, is that better? So one thing I'll say is that before we had our interdisciplinary units, we had what we called these templates of instruction. They were not as developed. We saw weaknesses with what we had. And as an instructional coach working with new teachers, it made it really, really hard and very complicated and very cumbersome, like hours and hours and hours of planning to try to develop these lessons. And we thought if we know what works, for students, then why aren't we doing a better job supporting our newer teachers with the strategies that we have? That led us to these IDUs that we're creating, and with those embedded PD, right, with those embedded instructional strategies, it's much easier for a new teacher to pick up what we're giving them now and be able to follow a lesson and integrate some of those hands-on learning practices for kids and the collaboration that we know that students need in today's learning. So I do think it directly impacts especially our new teachers and keeping our new teachers here in our district.
That's what I was gonna say. The other part is not just about obtaining you, but also
It's retention
retaining
is
the
what
ones
you're,
we have.
okay.
Yeah, I've had several new teachers who have said, we couldn't have done this without you, working alongside an instructional coach with the better developed units for our teachers in their hands.
Just quick, you estimated high on all these things? Okay.
All right, do we have consensus to bring this back?
Yes.
Yes.
Item B, Kishwaukee College Early College Program MOU. And this is presented by Director of Teaching and Learning, Sarah Montgomery. And
That would be me. I'm really excited to bring this back every year. This MOU will be renewed with Kishwaukee College, and it is for our juniors and seniors that would like to apply and be accepted into this early college program. This allows students to earn their associate's degree and high school diploma at the same time. This is specifically a 2-year track for these students. Just for background information, they do have a 1-year track, so if the student wants to just do it their junior year or just do it their senior year, they can do that, but that is outside this MOU. And then we have, I would say, a plethora of other dual credit classes that our students can take under the high school's roof. So we are continuously growing that. You heard earlier this year presentations. We have a couple other cooking in in the oven right now that you will hear once the school year starts, which I'm really excited for. It is definitely a benefit for our students to have the exposure to this advanced curriculum. Similar, the timing is perfect, to Dr. Knoll on our presentation on our end of the year data, making sure that all of our students' needs are being met. This is one of the ways that we can make sure that we're supporting our students and giving them a leg up while they're with us. That was a really high view. Do you have any questions?
Is this a new program? Is this something
No.
we've done in the past?
Yes, this is something that we did in the past. We will renew this every year.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Hearing none, any questions, do we have consensus to bring this back?
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the superintendent's report, Dr. Garcia said? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I got confused there.
All right. So, that means that we're at the end. So we're going to go through this, but we have a lot of celebrating to do. So as our president has, boys had mentioned, this is our largest graduating class that we just had. We had 504 graduates this year, this past Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago. And that is, last year we had 427, so it's an 18% growth. We're very happy and pleased about that. Sarah Jennings is our assistant principal at the high school, so she's here representing. I don't think I have high school folks around as well, but wanting to make sure that we talk about how wonderful that is. And I keep saying this, I get that you get all of the credit for graduating the kids, but it takes us all the way back to ELDC through elementary and middle school to get them through there. So it's everybody's win, and that just speaks to how well we've been doing the work that we've been doing, that we can continue to graduate more and more. So exciting about that. We just came back from our end of the year leadership conference. A number of individuals here were at that conference. I'm going to say that first and foremost, I feel that this conference really allowed us to be, number one, very vulnerable, very transparent, and also be able to learn some things that we thought we knew, but we didn't. One of those big pieces, I'm going to give shout out to Mr. Matt McIntyre, who has our emergency operations plan up and running, but did some tabletop exercises with us that really had us all bubbling up with some excitement and some wondering around if we're doing the right things. So Matt and the SROs will continue to do that work with us as we go through the year, ensuring that with the crisis, with our team, right? So that's Tammy, Ben, Matt, Shauna, and Armir, to ensure that we know what we need to do, God forbid if anything ever really happens, but we will be prepared. So I'm really excited about that work that we've done. We brought in more work around the series of belonging and culture and climate, and especially with this year being a lot of movement, a lot of transitioning for not just our regular transitions from 5th to 6th grade and then from 8th grade to high school, but then of course of the movement of where people live and what schools they're going to be attending, and with Mitchell being added on. So we're excited about all of that work. I want to do some shout outs for our student athletes. The boys tennis team made it to the 4th round of the championship. So yoo-hoo, wow, exciting for the boys tennis team. Thank you so much. The girls softball team won the regional championship game and advanced to sectionals. Game is tomorrow in Barrington, starting at 4:30. The middle school track team, Huntley students, 7th grade boys, Henderson, placed 5th grade in the high jump. 8th grade boys, Darius R., 4th in discus. 7th grade girls, Divine M. in the 6th in shot and discus. 7th grade girls, four-time 100, thank you, relay, thank you. In 4th place, as well as the 7th grade boys in 2nd place. So that's great. We have academics and we have athletes. And then I want to give Ms. Rita Elliott a big, huge shout out, because we just found out that our annual report was selected as the Publication and Digital Media Excellence Award from the National School Public Relations Association. So that's a big deal. It's a national award. Everybody has something to do with it, but Rita's the one that made it all happen and made it look the way that it does. So if you haven't taken a look at it yet, please, it's on our website, so you can download it and take a look at it there. We have hard copies, so please take a look there. Way to go, Rita. Then I just also wanted to, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that our very own Police Chief Byrd received the highest honor that can be bestowed on a police officer, the Medal of Honor. So congratulations, Chief, very proud of you, and thank you to you and to your squad for what you do for us each and every day. Thank you so much, stay safe out there. And that's it for me. I'm gonna turn it back over to our president so he can wrap it up.
All right, do we have any final comments from the board before we adjourn? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Steve, we got some signing.